Hale lived on the quiet edge of the orbital colony, where the halls were always dim and the air always hummed with the soft sound of machinery. He liked the silence. He liked the stillness. He liked the feeling that no one expected anything from him. Life had become simple that way, empty maybe, but simple. Then everything changed on a slow, quiet evening. It began with a soft knock at his apartment door. Almost ignored it. No one ever visited him, and he preferred it that way. But the knock came again, gentle, almost shy. Something in the sound made him stand up and walk over. When he opened the door, he froze. Standing there was a young alien woman, clutching a small bag to her chest as if it were a lifeline. Her skin was a soft blue shade, smooth like polished stone. Her silver eyes were wide and reflective, shaped almost like a teardrop. A pair of thin tendrils framed her cheeks, trembling softly like delicate ribbons. She looked scared, not of him, but of being unwanted. "Are you Hale?" she whispered. Her voice was soft, quiet, but strangely musical. "Yes," he said, "and you are." She lowered her head respectfully. "I am Lyra, assigned to you as part of the interspecies integration program. I have come to serve as your house assistant and caretaker." Blinked. He did remember applying for the program months ago, mostly out of curiosity and loneliness he didn't want to admit. He never expected they would actually send someone, especially not someone who looked so fragile, so nervous, so entirely out of place in his doorway. "Come in," he said at last. Lyra stepped inside carefully, as if afraid to disturb the air. She looked around with quiet curiosity, her silver eyes drifting from the old furniture to the dusty shelves. Suddenly felt self-conscious about how messy the place was. He hadn't expected a guest, much less someone who looked at his apartment like it might swallow her whole. "You can put your things anywhere," said awkwardly. She nodded, but her hands still tightened around her small bag. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Finally, Lyra spoke again. If this assignment is unwanted, I can request relocation. I will not cause trouble." Frowned. Why would it be unwanted? She hesitated, cheeks darkening with a blue blush. "Because humans often fear my kind. They think we are strange. They think we cannot understand their ways." "I don't think that," said. Her silver eyes lifted, surprised, almost hopeful. He wasn't lying, but he also wasn't sure what he was feeling. Something about her presence pulled at him gently. She looked like someone trying very hard to be brave. Lyra walked to the window and placed a hand on the glass. Outside, the stars floated like scattered diamonds. She stared at them with an expression that couldn't read, something between homesickness and longing. "Do you miss your planet?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer at first, then a soft breath escaped her. "I miss understanding my place," she whispered. Felt something tighten in his chest. He didn't know why her words affected him so much. Maybe because he understood the feeling too well. "Why did you join the program?" he asked. She looked down at her hands. "Like me must learn human customs if we wish to stay in the colony. I hope to prove I can adapt. I hope to be useful." Her voice softened, cracking only slightly. I hope not to fail again." Again, the word lingered in his mind, heavy and mysterious. Stepped a bit closer, trying to understand her expression. She looked so small in his apartment, small and lost, and determined not to show it. "You're not failing," he said gently. "You just arrived." Lyra blinked fast, as if holding back tears. "You are kind, Hale, but kindness is not expected from humans. I was warned of this." He sighed. "Then they warned you wrong." For a moment she simply stared at him. Then very slowly, almost timidly, she smiled. It was a small smile, fragile, shy, but it made her whole face soften. "You do not mind me staying?" she asked carefully, as if the answer would shape her entire future. Shook his head. "No, I think I'm glad you're here." Her breath caught. She lowered her gaze, grateful and overwhelmed. And just like that, the lonely apartment that once felt cold and forgotten gained a new warmth. A quiet, strange warmth brought by a frightened alien maid who only wanted a place where she belonged. That night, for the first time in years, didn't feel alone. Not anymore. The days after Lyra's arrival were quiet, almost too quiet. Returned to his usual routines, working in his small study, repairing old machines and eating simple meals, but everything felt slightly different. The apartment was no longer just a collection of furniture and shadows. It was alive, filled with the soft sound of Lyra moving, the gentle clink of her cleaning, the hum of her humming under her breath. Lyra was careful. She never rushed, never made mistakes. She polished surfaces until they gleamed, arranged books in neat rows, and cooked meals that smelled strange but somehow comforting. Yet noticed something unusual. No matter how perfectly she worked, her silver eyes always seemed distant, as though part of her mind floated somewhere else. One evening, watched her pause at the window again, staring at the stars. She didn't move for minutes, just stood with her hand lightly touching the glass. He wondered if she was thinking about her home world or about something she couldn't speak aloud. "Lyra," he said softly, "what do you see out there?" She blinked and turned toward him. I do not know," she whispered. "I am trying to understand humans and our place here, yet when I look at the stars, I feel something missing." Nodded slowly, unsure what to say. He had no experience with missing parts of oneself, but he understood emptiness. It had been his companion for years. Perhaps she felt the same. For the next few days, a pattern emerged. Lyra would complete her chores flawlessly, and then she would linger near him, sitting silently, her hands folded, her gaze never leaving him. She did not speak unless he asked a question, and even then her answers were careful, precise, and quiet. One night, while was repairing a broken shelf, Lyra approached him. Her hands shook slightly as she handed him a small cup of liquid that smelled unfamiliar. "Tea," she said softly. "It will help you rest." He took it, surprised by her thoughtfulness. "Thank you," he said. She lowered her gaze, a faint blue blush coloring her cheeks. You allow me to be here, even when I do not know what is proper, even when I may fail." Froze, fail, that word again. He had seen it in her eyes before, fleeting and fearful. "Lyra," he said gently, "you have not failed. You are learning just like I am." She tilted her head, silver eyes wide and searching. "Learning, but humans are difficult. They hide feelings, they do not trust easily. How am I to understand what is expected of me?" Leaned back, rubbing the back of his neck. "Maybe that's the thing, you don't have to understand everything all at once. Just be here, that is enough." Her lips quivered. She opened her mouth, then closed it. After a long pause, she nodded, as if he had given her permission to exist without fear. In the following days, started noticing the small things. Lyra would hum softly while she worked, a tune that seemed sad but comforting. Sometimes she would pause mid-task and glance at him, almost shyly, and quickly look away when he caught her gaze. The apartment that had once felt lonely now seemed full of unspoken emotions, subtle gestures, and gentle hesitations. One evening, while the colony lights dimmed and the stars shone brighter than ever, found Lyra sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring at her hands. He approached slowly, unsure if he should interrupt her thoughts. "Lyra," he said softly. She flinched slightly but did not move away. "Yes." "Why do you look at your hands like that?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I am trying to understand myself, to understand my place. I feel strange emotions, and I do not know what to do with them." Knelt beside her. "You're allowed to feel strange emotions. I do too." She looked at him then, silver eyes wide, vulnerable. "Even you." He nodded. "Especially me. That's why it's easier to be here with someone trying and caring." Her lips curved slightly, almost like a smile, fragile but real. For the first time, felt a warmth inside him that he could not explain. She was not just a visitor, not just a maid. She was someone who needed him, and someone he could not ignore. That night, as Lyra the room quietly and sat watching her, he realized that something had shifted. The emptiness he had carried for years was softening. He did not yet know how or why, but he felt it. A bond forming, delicate and unspoken, fragile as glass but luminous as the stars she watched each night. And in that silent, ordinary apartment between hums, footsteps, and stolen glances, a strange truth settled in both of them. Sometimes just being present for someone, just allowing yourself to be seen, was the beginning of something extraordinary. Days passed, but the quiet rhythm of and Lyra's life did not change. She moved like a shadow around the apartment, completing tasks flawlessly, yet never speaking more than necessary. Noticed her trembling hands sometimes, the way her silver eyes lingered on him longer than polite custom demanded. One evening, after the colony lights dimmed and the hum of machinery grew softer, Lyra approached him with unusual hesitation. She held her hands together tightly, twisting her fingers nervously, looked up from the book he was reading, sensing the tension in the air before she even spoke. She began softly, almost faltering. "May I ask you something personal?" He set his book down and leaned back in his chair, curiosity and concern mixed in his expression. "Of course," he said gently. Lyra took a deep breath, her shoulders rising and falling. I want to perform a bonding ritual with you. A ritual. It is meant to share emotions safely, to understand another being deeply." Blinked, caught off guard. "A bonding ritual." She nodded quickly, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and hope. "Yes, I tried once before and failed. I panicked. I left before it could finish. I cannot forget that, but I want to try again, with you, tonight, if you allow it." Hesitated. He had never been part of something like this. The very idea of sharing emotions so openly made him uneasy. Yet, when he looked at her trembling hands, at the way her silver eyes glistened under the soft lights, he felt a pull he could not ignore. "Lyra," he said softly, "you don't have to do this if it scares you." "I am afraid," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper, "but I trust you." Her words struck him with unexpected force. Trust. She had chosen him to be the one, not anyone else in the colony, not another human, not a stranger. Her choice was him. The realization settled in his chest like a weight he wanted to carry, even if it was heavy. "Okay," he said finally, his voice calm, steady. "We'll try it together." Relief washed over her face, mingled with lingering fear. She guided him to the small rug near the window, where the stars shimmered above like a million tiny diamonds. She knelt across from him, hands folded in her lap, breathing slowly as if gathering courage. "Close your eyes," she whispered, "and breathe with me slowly, match my rhythm." Obeyed, uncertain but willing. At first it felt awkward. Their breath seemed uneven, mismatched. Lyra's hands shook in her lap and he worried she might give up. "It's okay," he murmured. "We can go slowly." Her silver eyes fluttered open, and she offered him a small, uncertain smile. I will not leave this time," she promised. He nodded, heart beating faster than he expected. Together they breathed, leaning closer, feeling the faint warmth of shared space. A strange energy hummed between them, something intangible yet undeniable. Could feel a shift in the air, a connection forming, delicate and fragile. Then suddenly Lyra froze. Her hands clenched and a tremor ran through her body. Her silver eyes widened, glistening with fear. I cannot do this," she whispered, voice shaking. I am broken, I always fail." Reached out gently, resting his hand over hers. He said softly, "You are not broken, not here, not with me. It's okay to be afraid, it's okay to fail, I will not leave you." Her breath hitched, and tears pooled in the corners of her eyes. Slowly, tremblingly, she relaxed her fingers around his. One finger, then another, until her hands rested fully in his. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to lean slightly forward, her head tilted toward him, silver eyes glimmering with tentative trust. Felt a warmth in his chest that spread slowly, a soft glow that seemed to fill the quiet apartment. "You are human," she whispered. "You are patient, gentle, I did not expect this." He shrugged, a small smile touching his lips. "Maybe humans aren't always as complicated as you think. Sometimes we just care." Her lips quivered as she let out a shaky laugh. "You care, even when I fail, even when I am strange." His hand squeezed hers lightly. "Always." And in that small, ordinary apartment under the silent stars, something remarkable began. A bond forming between two very different beings, fragile but strong, fearful but brave. Lyra's trust had been earned slowly, painfully, yet finally it was real. And who had lived so long in quiet loneliness felt the first spark of connection he had ever known. The night stretched on, silent except for their breaths, gentle and in rhythm, each one learning the other's heartbeat without words. And for the first time, both of them understood that sometimes courage was not running toward danger, but simply letting someone else in. The morning after their first attempt at the bonding ritual, the apartment felt different. Moved through it slowly, quietly, aware of Lyra's presence in ways he hadn't before. She had been silent since dawn, tidying with her usual precision. Yet every movement seemed smaller, careful, as if she were measuring the space between herself and him. Wanted to speak, to say something comforting, but words felt insufficient. He didn't know the language of emotions, not really. He only knew human patience, and he hoped it would be enough. Lyra finally looked at him while placing dishes in the sink. Her silver eyes were still wide with hesitation, her hands trembling slightly. She began softly, I feel something I cannot name. Nodded, encouraging her silently. It's okay, you don't have to name it, you just have to feel it. She blinked, and for a moment he thought she might laugh at his simplicity, but instead she lowered her gaze, pressing her lips together as if biting back the fear inside her. I am afraid, she whispered. Afraid that I will hurt you with my emotions, afraid that I will fail again, afraid that my presence may be a burden. Swallowed hard, the truth in her voice cut through him more deeply than he expected. He had lived in quiet isolation for years, thinking his life had no meaning beyond routine. And now someone fragile, scared, beautiful, was trusting him with her heart, even though she barely knew him. You won't hurt me, he said softly. You are not a burden, I want you here, that's all that matters. Her silver eyes glistened as she looked at him, and for the first time he saw the depth of her trust and the weight of her fear. She had been through something, he could feel it. Something that left scars he could not see, but she carried them in her trembling hands and cautious voice. I do not understand humans completely, she admitted. Your emotions are complex. I cannot predict them, yet I want to connect. I want to try again tonight, if you allow me. Hesitated. He had felt her fear, her uncertainty, and he knew this was not just about a ritual. This was about her needing someone to hold steady, someone who would not run away when she faltered. And though he wanted to say yes, he was unsure if he could give her the reassurance she craved. He began, pausing to gather his thoughts. I don't know if I can guide you perfectly. I don't know the right way to respond to your kind of bonding, but I can promise you this, I will not leave. I will be here with you. That is enough for now. Her lips quivered and she nodded. I can try with that. The rest of the day passed slowly. Lyra worked quietly, her movements careful but steady. Watched her sometimes, nodding the small tremor in her fingers, the way her eyes softened whenever they met his. He realized that every glance, every small action was her way of reaching out, her version of trust. As night fell, the apartment felt heavier with anticipation. Lyra approached him with her usual careful steps, silver eyes glistening with nerves. She whispered, If I fail again, I do not want you to be angry. I only wish to share with you, only that. He smiled gently, though his heart raced. I won't be angry, not at you, ever. Her eyes widened, disbelief and relief mingling in their depths. Even if I falter, even if I cannot keep my emotions steady. Took her small hands in his. Even then, I'll stay, I promise. A fragile smile crossed her face, and she leaned forward slightly, enough for him to see the hope glimmering in her silver eyes. The trust she placed in him was immense, fragile like crystal. He could feel it, and it scared him almost as much as it inspired him. Then with careful steps, she led him back to the small rug near the window. The stars outside twinkled like distant promises. She knelt across from him, breathing slowly, hands folded in her lap. Her shoulders trembled, but she did not retreat. She had chosen to try again, despite the fear that had gripped her before. Are you ready? She whispered. Nodded, yes, I'm ready with you. For the first time, they faced the ritual without rushing, without faltering. Lyra's trembling slowed as calm presence grounded her. Their breaths matched slowly, then more naturally, and a quiet energy began to flow between them. The room felt warmer, softer, alive with the weight of shared courage. And in that moment, understood something he had never known before. Sometimes bravery was not running into danger. Sometimes it was staying when someone else needed you, holding your hand and letting them lean on you, even if you were unsure yourself. And Lyra, trembling but determined, realized that trust was not perfection. Trust was simply choosing to stay, even when fear told her to run. The evening air in the orbital colony was quiet, heavier than usual. Outside the small apartment window, the stars shone cold and distant, yet inside, and Lyra prepared to try the bonding ritual again. Tonight was different. Both of them could feel it, the tension, the fear, and the fragile hope mingling in the small space between them. Lyra knelt across from him, her hands folded carefully in her lap, but they trembled slightly. Her silver eyes darted to his face, searching for reassurance. She whispered, I am afraid I will fail again, that I will frighten you with my feelings. You won't, he said softly. I promise, just be here, that's all I need. Her lips quivered, and for a moment she looked ready to retreat, ready to vanish from the apartment as she had almost done before. But then, slowly, she nodded. I trust you. Felt a surge of emotion, trust. That single word held more weight than any command or promise. He nodded, his own heart trembling. Then we try together. The ritual began. Lyra guided him to match her breathing, to feel the rhythm of her heart, to open a small window into her mind. Had never done anything like this. He wasn't sure how to share emotions without words, but he concentrated, letting the quiet space between them grow full of understanding, full of presence. At first, everything was calm. They leaned closer, their hands brushing tentatively. Lyra's breath was steadying, her silver eyes softening. Felt something shift, a warmth he hadn't felt in years, spreading through him like sunlight breaking through clouds. Then, without warning, Lyra froze. Her hands clenched tight and her body shook as if a sudden storm had passed through her. Her eyes widened in fear and her voice trembled. No, I cannot. Not again, I fail. His heart tightened. He had expected hesitation, maybe even nervousness, but not this sudden wave of panic. Lyra, he said gently, resting his hand over hers. It's okay. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Breathe with me. She trembled violently, her silver eyes glistening with tears. I ruin everything. I cannot control it. I am broken. You are not broken, said firmly, his voice soft but unwavering. Not here, not with me. You can feel anything and I will still stay. I will not leave, I promise. Her body shook, her head bowed, and for a long moment the room seemed to hold its breath with them. Simply stayed, hand resting over hers, offering a quiet anchor. Slowly, her trembling lessened. She let a single finger relax in his palm, then another, until her hands were fully resting against his. Lyra's lips quivered and she leaned closer, as if testing whether she could trust him fully. Held her gaze, offering only calm and presence. It was not perfect. The ritual had faltered, but the trust, fragile as it was, had survived. You are patient, she whispered, silver eyes shining through the fear. I did not expect this. I thought humans would not wait. I thought they would leave. I don't leave, said. Not now, not ever, if you let me stay. Her lips curved into a fragile smile, tiny but real, like a star breaking through the clouds. Even when I fail, she asked softly. Even then, he replied. A quiet stillness fell over the room, a warm, gentle peace. Lyra leaned forward slightly, placing her forehead lightly against his. It was a gesture of deep trust, one that reserved for those who truly understood their hearts. Felt the weight of that trust and realized he had never experienced anything so tender, so powerful. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to relax fully. Her breathing steadied, and the trembling that had haunted her disappeared, replaced with a fragile calm. In turn, felt something uncoil inside him, a soft, quiet relief, the first true connection he had felt in years. The stars outside continued to shine coldly, distant, and eternal. Yet inside the small apartment, warmth bloomed. Two beings from different worlds, separated by species, culture, and experience, had taken the first step toward something extraordinary. Fear had almost broken them, but patience, presence, and trust had held them together. When Lyra finally lifted her head, her silver eyes glimmered with something had never seen before, hope. Tonight we tried, she whispered. Smiled, brushing a trembling tendril from her face. Yes, he said softly. Tonight we tried, and that's enough. That is everything. In that quiet room under the distant light of the stars, something had changed. Fear had not won. Connection had begun, and both of them knew that tomorrow they could try again, and perhaps slowly learn to heal together. The morning light spilled into the apartment in soft, golden streams, painting the walls with warmth. Lyra sat near the window, her knees drawn close to her chest, silver eyes reflecting the gentle glow of the stars fatting behind the colony. Watched her quietly from across the room, unsure whether to speak. She seemed lost in thought, fragile as a crystal sculpture about to shatter. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "There is something I must tell you." Set down his tools and walked closer, kneeling beside her. "You can tell me anything, Lyra," he said softly. "I'll listen." She hesitated, trembling slightly. "On my planet, I was bonded before, with someone I trusted deeply, but it ended badly, painfully. I thought I could never trust again, never allow someone to share their heart with me because I feared I would break them or be broken myself." His chest tightened. He could feel the weight of her words, heavy and raw, almost unbearable in their honesty. He had never imagined the life she had lived before arriving here. A life of hurt, fear, and caution. Yet she still chose to stay, to try again with him. I did not want to burden you with this," she continued. "I feared you would leave if you knew. I feared you would see me as weak." Reached out and took her hand gently. "Lyra," he said softly, "I do not see weakness, I see courage. You survived pain and fear, and yet you are here, you are trying. That is bravery, not weakness." Her silver eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Bravery? I am not sure I feel brave. I feel uncertain. I feel afraid. I feel everything I do not know how to contain." "You don't have to contain it," said firmly. "You can feel everything. I will be here. I won't leave. I won't turn away." For the first time, she allowed herself to lean slightly into his presence, her trembling fingers resting in his steady hand. The warmth of his palm seeped into her, and a fragile sense of safety began to grow inside her chest. She had been cautious, holding back, guarding herself against another betrayal. But now, slowly, she let the walls fall just a little. She whispered, I have never felt like this with anyone. Not since my bond ended. I do not know what this is, but I wish to feel it, fully, even if it scares me." Smiled softly, brushing a trembling tendril of her hair from her face. "Then we will feel it together. Whatever it is, we will face it together, step by step, one breath at a time." Her lips quivered and a small, tentative smile curved across her face. She leaned closer, her forehead brushing lightly against his shoulder. You are patient," she murmured. "You do not push, you wait, you allow me to be myself, even with all my fear." "I am not perfect," admitted. "I may not always know what to do, but I will stay. I will learn with you. That is all I can promise." She closed her eyes, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. "That is more than I have ever received," she whispered. "More than I dared hope for." The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of machinery and their synchronized breathing. In that quiet, fragile space, a bond that neither of them fully understood was forming. Not just a bond of ritual, but a bond of trust, patience, and shared courage. "I want to try again tonight," Lyra said softly, lifting her head slightly to look at him. Her silver eyes glimmered with a mixture of fear and hope. "To practice, to share without fear. Will you allow me?" Nodded, squeezing her hand gently. "Yes, we'll try together, and no matter what happens, I will not leave. We can take as many nights as we need." Her lips curved into a small, genuine smile, fragile but glowing. "Thank you," she whispered, "for allowing me, for staying, for trusting me." Felt something warm and unspoken bloom inside him. In all his quiet, lonely years, no one had ever asked to share themselves so completely. No one had ever trusted him this way. And now, with Lyra, he understood that the greatest courage was not in facing the universe alone, but in letting someone in and choosing to stay even when it was frightening. The day faded into night, stars twinkling above like distant promises. Lyra and prepared for the ritual again, their hearts heavy with hope and fear, yet stronger for having shared truths that could have driven them apart. And as they knelt together on the rug near the window, their hands intertwined and breaths matching, both of them realized. Sometimes the deepest bond was born not from perfection, but from the courage to trust, and to try again even after fear. The night fell softly over the orbital colony. Outside the apartment window, the stars shimmered coldly, distant and unchanging, yet inside, and Lyra felt a warmth neither had expected. The apartment was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of machinery, the slow rhythm of their breaths, and the faint, fragile heartbeat of something new growing between them. Lyra knelt across from him on the rug, her hands resting lightly in his. Her silver eyes glimmered with a mixture of fear, hope, and trust. She whispered, I am ready. I want to try again. Nodded, I'm here, Lyra, with you, always. The ritual began slowly. Lyra guided him to match her breathing, to open his mind gently, to feel without judgment. For a moment it was awkward, their breaths uneven, their hands barely touching. But slowly, imperceptibly, the rhythm began to match. A subtle warmth flowed between them, a quiet energy that made the room feel alive. Then, as the ritual deepened, Lyra's hands began to tremble. Her silver eyes widened, a hint of panic flashing across her delicate face. I am afraid, she whispered. What if I fail again? What if I ruin this? You won't, said softly, placing his hand over hers. We are doing this together. Nothing can break what we are trying to build. You can trust me. You can be afraid, and it's okay. I will stay. She breathed shakily, leaning slightly forward, her forehead brushing against his shoulder. I never thought I could feel safe like this, she murmured. I never thought I could share my heart and not be afraid it would be broken. Swallowed, a lump forming in his throat. You can feel everything. I will be here. I won't leave, Lyra, not tonight, not ever. Tears welled in her silver eyes, and for the first time she allowed herself to fully relax into his presence. The trembling faded, replaced by a fragile calm. Their hands remained intertwined, and their breaths slowly matched, steady and gentle, rising and falling as one. I feel something, she whispered, voice barely audible. I do not know its name, but I want to feel it more with you. Smiled softly, brushing a trembling tendril from her face. Then we will feel it together, every step, every moment, no rush, no fear, just together. Her lips curved into a small, genuine smile, a glimmer of hope shining through her silver eyes. Thank you, she whispered, for not leaving, for being patient, for being you. He felt warmth spread through his chest, a mixture of relief, pride, and wonder. For years he had lived alone, thinking connection was too fragile to last. And now here she was, trusting him, depending on him, allowing him to share in her world. The night stretched on, quiet, fragile, and perfect in its imperfection. They did not speak much, for words were unnecessary. Every glance, every touch, every shared breath spoke louder than any sentence. And slowly something extraordinary grew, not a perfect bond, but a real one built on patience, trust, and courage. Finally, Lyra lifted her head, silver eyes glimmering with tears and starlight. Tonight we tried, she whispered. Yes, said softly, brushing a tear from her cheek. Tonight we tried, and that is enough, that is everything. She smiled, a small, radiant expression that warmed him more than the sun ever could. Tomorrow, can we try again? She asked quietly, hope threading through every word. His heart swelled. He had never imagined anyone would ask to share themselves so completely with him. And now, he knew he wanted nothing more than to stay, to continue, to grow this fragile bond into something stronger. Yes, he said gently, tomorrow we'll try again. And in that quiet apartment, under the eternal stars, something miraculous had happened. Two beings from different worlds, each carrying fear, pain, and past scars, had found a connection that neither could break. A bond born not from perfection, but from courage, the courage to stay, to trust, and to try again. Lyra rested her head lightly against his shoulder, a soft sigh of contentment escaping her. Wrapped his arm around her, holding her close, feeling the warmth of life and hope that flowed between them. For the first time in years, he did not feel alone. Outside, the stars continued to shine, cold and eternal. But inside, in the small apartment, two hearts beat together. Fear had been faced, doubt had been silenced, and trust had been chosen. And as the night deepened, Lyra whispered once more, her voice full of promise and warmth. Well, let's try again tonight. He smiled, heart full, hope blazing bright. Yes, he said softly, tonight we try again. And for both of them, tomorrow no longer felt uncertain. It felt like home.